hopefully hello to Richard, if you're able to see me or perhaps hear me. I think you might just be muted. Let's just see if we can do anything about that. Still just can't hear you. There we are.
Now?
That's it. Perfect. Great. Excellent. Well, great to see you again, and great to have so many people involved with our webinar again this afternoon. I know we've got lots of people who weren't able to join us yesterday, so lots of new faces, as it were, joining us this afternoon, and really, great to have so many people, particularly on such a nice day. I was a bit worried that we'd got Richard in from his swimming pool, maybe, to do this webinar, but in fact, I did wonder if you might do the webinar from his swimming pool, but obviously not today.
No.
So we've got, we had 60 people registered for today. Yesterday, we had over 150 people involved in yesterday's stable visit and another 60 people registered for today. So it's proving to be incredibly popular, which is fantastic. So lots of people joining us as I speak. So let me just remind everyone, if you look at the bottom of the screen, there's a Q&A box. So if you press that, you can type in any questions and I'll pass some of those along to Richard. I'll sort of get a feel for what are the most popular questions that you've got, and we'll be passing those on to Richard. And also at the bottom of your screen, you'll see a button that says wave. Now, if anyone's brave enough, you can press the wave button. That will show up on my screen and we can come to you live and you can ask Richard a question directly. We can't see you, but we'll be able to hear you by unmuting your microphone. So no one was brave enough to do that yesterday. Let's see if anyone wants to ask Richard a question live during our webinar today. But what I'll certainly do is look to pass on any questions that we might have from any of our members, so that we can really give Richard a good grilling. It's a rare opportunity to get to speak to a doctor during lockdown. So let's take advantage of it. So first of all, Richard, we've still got people joining us, so we'll just wait 1 minute or so before we get going. But how are you? Are you keeping well? Family all good?
Family good, keeping well, yeah. And looking forward to the National Hunt season kicking off finally now. Getting closer, isn't it? I mean, Wednesday the 1st, it's only, a week tomorrow we'll be having runners and going to the races, so that's exciting. Got a runner tonight, actually, on the flat, but I mean, not we're really looking forward to the jump racing.
So where's that tonight? Who's running?
I've got Employer running at Kempton in the 7:55. He'd have a small chance. He's a funny horse, definitely capable of winning off his mark, but he's strong traveller, but doesn't find a lot off the bridle. So I've given clear instructions to the jockey that he's got to wait and play his cards a bit later than we've had before. But that'll clearly be ignored, and they'll do whatever they want to do.
So you didn't get Sam Twiston-Davies to do 8 stone then?
No, sir. I'll be happy if we can do 10 stone 8 next week.
Well, fingers crossed for that. Yeah. Great. Well, look, we've got lots and lots of people joining us. Absolutely fantastic. So we're going to get well over 200 people involved with our 2 stable visits, which is brilliant. So what I thought we'd do is we'd start off by showing, just to explain, Richard's got 2 yards sort of in operation, and we'll talk a little bit about that in a second. And what we'll do is we're going to show some recordings of horses that Richard's going to talk about. And we'll start off by going to Loxie and having a look at the horses that are in training there. But I should stress, obviously, what we're looking at here is the sort of season starting on the 1st of July. So we're looking at horses that are nearly ready to run, and those of Richard's, not just foxtrot horses, but other horses as well that may be of interest to us, plus, of course, all the foxtrot horses. So a bit of a variety of horses we're going to see. It's not just the foxtrot ones, but other ones as well. So, Richard, just before we go over and show the video, let's just talk a little bit about the fact that we've got 2 venues, and we're going to show horses at both venues. So can you just explain why, some horses are at Loxie and some are at Lineker's, which obviously we know as the former yard, if you like?
Yeah, absolutely, Dan. So I still live at Lineker's, where the original yard was, and many will remember it from, it started off with 4 boxes, 8 boxes, 12 boxes, got 20 and 20, just a bit over 20. To be honest, that's all the capacity that yard has. We started building the new yard, well, we moved into the new yard last September. It's super. We've got 43 boxes there. It's fantastic. Well, a couple of reasons why we're using Lineker's as well as Loxie. One is capacity, because even though Earloxy Super, 43 boxes, well, we're exceeding that significantly now. And if you can imagine the scenario at the moment, this is exaggerated by the fact that with the jump racing being, well, all the racing being put on hold for several months, the summer racing and winter racing seasons are getting tighter and tighter. So we've got to start all our winter horses off in a couple of weeks' time to get them ready for October, November. So we're going to be well over the 40 odds. So it's useful having the extra capacity. But the other thing is, we never stopped using Lineker's, but we were using the old yard, but we were using it more for box rests and pre-training and injuries. And we've decided to flip that round a bit, because that gallop has worked, it's a hill gallop, and it's worked so well for us in the past that we think there's an advantage, a fitness advantage we can get by using it. So we're using it rather differently now. So rather than pre-train there, what we're doing is doing the pre-training, the box rests, and all the early training at Earloxy, and a lot of the ongoing training. But for those that we want to, we're flipping them over for a 6-week program of intensive hill work at Lineker's. And we've just done the first batch. We've just completed that. And they've gone back now to the Earloxy, the newer gallop, and we'll carry on racing from there. But we brought another 18 over from Earloxy that have been doing just fine for a specific 6-week program. So it's quite deliberate, and we think it's getting the best of both worlds, we hope. But the proof of the pudding will be in the eating, and we're soon going to find out with our results as to how well we're doing or not doing.
So it sounds really like you're making the most use of all the facilities you've got, and you know, almost the horses are going on a bit of a sort of training camp over to the old yard to work up the hill and give them a little bit of a change of scenery. And so, you know, sounds like you're just making use of you know, a tremendous facility that's already been very successful for you.
Exactly. Well, we know that hill gallop has been a very successful formula for us. You know, we've got a track record of improving horses coming there, really, with probably getting a fitness advantage. We just think it'd be foolish not to use it when we have it. And the other thing is, there's a more, perhaps a slight, another sort of subtle point about that attracts me, is that we ask horses to do the same thing day in, day out. So 6 days a week, most horses go up the same gallop all the time. If you've got 2 different surfaces doing slightly different things and slightly different contours, if you like, you're actually putting pressure points of the horse into slightly different places. And that can have an advantage, because we know that horses, for example, can get sore shins or stress fractures and so on, which can be due to just repeating the same thing time and time again. So there is an advantage in just change, and there's a particular advantage in using hills, because you can get them to work very, very hard without necessarily having to go quite the same speed.
Great. Well, let's get over to Earloxy and have a look at some of the horses over there. And as you can see, when Richard and Rod, his assistant, filmed this, the weather was a little bit different to how it is today. Richard, I'm just going to mention to you, I'm going to I'm just doing the technology here, but I'm going to turn off your video during this, because I think it just makes it go a little bit quicker. So we'll need to turn on our videos after we've shown this clip. So
well, we can turn mine off. Turn mine off.
No, well, I can do it, but yeah, I'm just loading it up now. So just bear with me a second.
Purple King, who's just finished his work this morning and actually been schooling with Colleen landed on top. The horse is fine, he's progressed well, he's ready to run. He's one of the horses I've got down to run in the next week or so. And actually there's a race at Newton Abbot on the 7th of July, which might just work for him. I think he's quite well handicapped off 113. There were 2 lovely wins last year, but we've not seen the best of him yet, I think. So I'm still hoping that he can go on hurdling. We could go chasing in the future, but for the moment my focus is to try and win another handicap hurdle race. So Newton Abbot, 7th of July, Purple King, he's in good form. We've had an uncomplicated training regime. So this is Captain Tomcat, who's a new young horse we've got. He's only 5 years old, but he's a great big stamp of a horse, you can see. He's by Dylan Thomas. Dylan Thomas tends to produce quite big horses. He'll be going the maiden hurdle, novice hurdle route. and he actually was third in the point-to-point in Ireland and then lost his form, so we bought him pretty cheaply, to be honest. But the third at the time, he might have been disappointed, but the winner's gone on and won the Cheltenham Festival bumper, Fernie Hollow, and the second horse, Gigginstown, paid over 100,000 for. So it might just be he's a bit better than that bare form tells you. Captain Tomcat. This is Higgs. And we're very lucky to have Tom O'Brien in with us this morning, who's sitting on top. He's just done a little bit of schooling, and he'll be out quite soon. About the 10th of July is a race at, I think it's Market Race, and I thought might be suitable for him. He came to us just under a year ago. He's by Scorpion. To be honest, he's been a bit of a disappointment because I thought he was a sort of horse that would really improve in our yard. But I wouldn't give up on him just yet. He ran well first time. He has had a slight wind issue, which a lot of the Scorpions do, and he's had his palate cauterised, although that was in fairness before his last few runs. But you can see he's a nice big stamp of a horse, and I'm sure Tom will tell me that he could possibly go chasing in the autumn, and I think the better ground will suit him, about 2.5 miles. So I hope we still got races to do on with Higgs. A lovely sight, Von Romane and tracked by Sudden Destination, coming to finish their work. They're back in full work now. Two excellent foxtrot horses that have had injuries and a long time off. Von Romane in particular, of course, absolute stable star. 12 wins for us, 14 wins in his entire career over every code. Give me another horse like him any time you can. He had his tendon injury in America in July of last year. He was treated by this this treatment called microcurrent treatment, and I have to say the legs feel and look good as new. But the test is always, as you train them, to see whether they can cope with the work that's going on. Obviously, it's very difficult for him to win races. Very difficult for him to win races now because he's on such a high handicap mark, accelerated 151. He's been an incredible Trojan, but the aim will be to get him back for the track around about September, October time, and then aim for some of those nice races, maybe take us to Ascot again, if we could, where he had his signature win. But what a star he's been. And if we switch to Sudden Destination, a lovely big scopy type. He has a classic story of National Hunt racing. He's had problem after problem, really, for these big horses. He's had a tie-back surgery since his last run, then a tendon strain. But I'm so pleased that we are giving him a chance, because in between, he's shown flickers of real ability. Really, it is a bit last chance saloon for him, but we've got to see what he can do. So he's by Dubai Destination. He's got a mark of 115, still a maiden, remember, over hurdles and fences. So there are options for him, providing we can get him to the track in one piece. That's the plan, but they're both back in full work. This is Gettysburg Address, who's 9 years old now, by Milan, and the reason I wanted to point him out to you is that he had a most appalling injury where he injured himself somehow in the field, which is just a terrible thing that horses have, which is an injury down here. Dreadful laceration. We thought we'd lost him. He's had best part of a year off, but he's come back and he's good as new. And we're giving him a go again. The owner absolutely loves him, Mike Tudor, so much so that he said that as soon as this horse has finished racing, he's going to pay for him to be transported, to be a hack for him in the United States of America. So that's the commitment. But Gettysburg Address will be fascinating to see how he gets on this year. She's fit and ready to go now. You remember that last year it didn't quite happen for her. But I'm glad that we've hung on to her to give her another go. She's got a good handicap mark of 96. I want to try something different this year. It may not work, but there's a lot in the pedigree that suggests that she possibly wants further, but she does need to settle to get that. So I'd like the idea of trying her over 3 miles and dropping her right out in a low-grade race. Now, there's a race at Stratford on July the 8th that I've penciled her in for. I'm hoping we'll have a run there. And as I say, it's a bit of an experiment learning curve, but we need to do something a little bit different from last year to try and get the best out of her. But she's trained very well. She's trained easily, absolutely equal to last year. So hopefully we can get the penny to drop and use that good handicap mark. Nordican Bluff, 5 years old now, very talented on her day, but quite tricky. She's a mare. We didn't quite score in her juvenile season, but 2 lovely wins last year, but then she disgraced herself not starting in her last run. But she has plenty of ability, and she's training well, and what we're hoping to do is to run her in the summer hurdle. a market rate, and that's the current plan. There are no mares handicap hurdles she can run in. Her rating is 125. Whether she's good enough for that, I don't know. She'd have to be absolutely on her A game. But provisional plan is to have her there, and hopefully Mr. Twiston Davis on my left will be able to ride her. Fingers crossed. Great. So this is Tango Echo Charlie, a 6-year-old new horse for us. Just joined us. He hasn't run for us yet, but he'll be out this summer. He was third in a bumper in Ireland. He's running a few point-to-points. He was fourth in a point-to-point, but some in and out form before then. Trained by a very small yard in Ireland, Roy Tector. Killeen's been riding him this morning. He's schooled. We'll go novice hurdling with him, but to be honest, he's one I'm expecting to be a 3-mile chaser down the line. He's by stowaway, intends to get a lot of stamina, and the mare is a full sister to I think a half sister to a horse called Newvelly, or full sister to Newvelly, and a half sister to a very good horse that Twiston Davis used to have, Arderhead. So nice bit of pedigree, but you'd expect this to be a chaser in the making the long term, and probably wants softer ground. But I want to start him off during the summer just to see where we're at and see how we get on. So this is Fleur de Soy, who's a new recruit from France. We've got quite a few mares this year, and she's an interesting character, not an expensive buy. She's closely related to Catamaran de Soy, who some of you will know. She's won 5 races for us, and the same owner actually was keen to buy her. So she's by Zane, who's Mick Shannon's a good horse on the flat. He's not really made as a great stallion yet, but she's like one or two of these mares we have. The difficulty is she can be quite a challenge on the track because she gets quite buzzy and excited. But actually, she has a nice way of going about her when she does get going. And she's running a couple of hurdles in France, and she jumps beautifully. So I'll be hopeful if we can get her to calm down and not get silly at the track. But she's got enough ability to go and win a race. So this is one of the success stories of last season, Mr. Muldoon. Great foxtrot horse. Again, not an expensive buy. Came to the point-to-point field. I wasn't quite sure how good he was. Many of you remember me telling you, warning everyone that he couldn't possibly win at Worcester when he duly won first time up. But of course, he's won 5 times over hurdles, and he's never been outside the first 3. He's won 3, including, of course, that excellent win at Ascot, and he's rated 132. Very excited about going chasing with him. He's going to go novice chasing. He likes a bit of soft ground, so he's only really just come back into training, but he's just done his canter this morning, and we're excited about him for the autumn. I did foolishly pick him out as when someone asked me for a horse to follow. This could be a very interesting horse. He surprised me last year. I'm hoping that's surprising. He continues to surprise me as the season rolls on and he goes chasing. Just for Fee. He's a new horse being sent to us. The reason I mention is you might want to look out for her. Very tricky. She's running her races and runs like a complete tearaway. So we're working hard. She's settled into to get her to settle. She's settled into our training routine, but it remains to be seen what she'll do on the track. I think she's going to be a handful, but she has got plenty of ability. By fame and glory. That's Just for Fee. French purchase, stamina choke. 4-year-old filly, not expensive, come from a very good yard in France, François Nicole. Maiden, so I like her because you still can go for those maidens and novices, and yet shown good ability. Typical French horse, she's a 4-year-old filly, she's already run over hurdles and fences, and she jumps beautifully. But difficult yard to improve on from François Nicole. This is Coulance, who's a 5-year-old mare, another French purchase by Le Havre. Now this horse, slightly different profile. She's been doing very well on the flat in France. She's run to a mark of nearly 90, certainly mid-80s, 1 mile and 6, 2 miles on the flat. Bit slow to get the hang of her jumping, a little bit careful, but is improving all the time. And we've got a number of mares, and she might just be one of the picks of them anyway to look out for. So this is Manila Encore. And the reason I wanted to show him to you, he's a fairly new recruit, 8-year-old. We've looked at all the rules, and we've bought a horse from Willie Mullins, so that was probably a huge mistake. But this horse would have the highest bumper-rated performance of any horse we've ever handled, about 136 or something. And he's still a maiden over hurdles, despite range of mark 138. Why have we got him? We managed to get him cheaply. And the reason for that is that he has had some training issues, and he lost a lot of time off with a very bad colic, but he's recovered from that. But he should, if he stays sound, be able to win 1 or 2 races. And of course, he's a lovely chaser stallion. And he's by King's Theatre, my favourite jump stallion of all time, who's no longer with us, who of course was the stallion of Royal Knight, one of our all-time favourites. So that's Manila Encore. So to show you just how wet it is, look, the ducks have arrived. And here's Who Shot Who. Very pleased to report he's just completed his 3 miles cantering. He's completely sound, and we're absolutely on track. We've had a very sort of stop-start spring, early summer with him, with a couple of foot problems, but he seems to be over them now. We're on track, and I'm excited. I mean, he's a horse that, in many ways, I think I've crabbed him far too much, because I've had high expectations of him. 2 chase wins. He has been placed 11 times as well. So, you know, he's a super horse, and there are still races to be won with him. He won't be out now, I would have thought, until about probably the late summer anyway, autumn time, because he's missed too much time and he's only just now got back on track. But lovely horse, by beneficial. I would think chasing would be the #1 aim, but as we know, he could go hurdle, he can mix and match like he's done before, and maybe the better ground will help him. Muggins here thought soft ground would help work for him, but it hasn't particularly helped. Who Shot Who? So this is Something About Angela, a mare that I bought from Ireland last year, won a novice hurdle in Ireland last year, over 2 miles 6. She's got a mark of 110. She was unlucky not to win on debut. Sent her up to Hexham, and she just got chinned on the line. Definitely feel that she's got races to win, and she will go chasing at some point. But she's by Milan, so a lovely mare. Something About Angela, and she'll be out, I think, in about 2 weeks' time. This is Marine 1. We never thought we'd see the day when we had a horse by Frankel in the yard, but we've got one here. Frankel, I think, was originally costing £250,000 to cover one. He's obviously not quite lived up to the original expectations, but he's a lovely horse. He's been sent to us. He's only been with us 2 or 3 weeks. He's already working quite nicely. He's an interesting horse. He's run 4 times over hurdles for Dennis Hogan. Hasn't won yet, which is ideal for us. But the handicapper I asked for a mark has given him a mark of 117. So he's one of those you'd expect to go on a maiden hurdle somewhere this summer, and really with a favourite's chance. He's rated quite lowly on the flat as well, in the 60s, and he's certainly a sort of dual purpose type, but lovely horse to have, and many more Frankels pleased to be sent to the yard if possible.
Great. Well, I hope you enjoyed seeing some of those horses, and thank you very much indeed to Rod and to Richard for putting together that video. Very much appreciated, particularly on not the nicest of days. So, great. Well, we had quite a few questions come in during that little session. So what I thought we'd do, Richard, if it's okay, is answer some of those questions, and then we'd move on, just have a quick chat about Mr. Chiang. But some of the questions we've received, and just to remind to everyone, if you've got any questions for Richard, you can just press the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen, or if you're brave enough, you can press the wave button and we'll come to you live for a question. But some of the Q&As that we've had, which you seem to have more mares than you've previously had, is that just because we've seen more mares, or do you have more mares in the yard?
No, I do have more mares in the yard, and it's just sort of evolved. I think partly when we first started, when we were very small, Lineker's a few years ago, I never used to have mares. And because we turn all the horses out, we were a bit nervous about mares and geldings sometimes don't get on, blah, 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 or the geldings compete for the mares and so on. So, you know, get attachments to them and so on. But to be honest, it never proved to be a problem. And I became more relaxed about having them. And then also, in addition to that, I think the mares program generally gets better and better. There's good opportunities for a lot of these mares. I like, where possible, to keep mares in mares' company, unless they're, you know, particularly exceptional. But it's just evolved that way. So now I haven't sort of open-minded about it, but we do seem to have plenty in the yard at the moment.
One of the key things for any, I suppose, sport or industry is getting the right talent in. You know, if you're a football team, the manager's got to bring in the right players. If you're a businessman, you've got to bring in the right staff. And I'm sure the same applies for training racehorses. It's about getting the right talent into the yard. And how active are you in terms of the horses that come into the yard?
In terms of the horses, how do you mean?
Yeah, how sort of active are you? I mean, do you have a lot of trainers will just get sent horses by the owners? We've had a question here just asking, do you play a very active part in terms of the horses that join the yard?
I do. I mean, I'm a lot of my time is spent sourcing horses. So, looking at sales, dealing with agents. I probably get, even during this lockdown period, I'm probably getting 3 or 4 calls a week with horses being offered to me, and I'll decline nearly all of them. But we have bought a few new ones, and so it's got to tick all the right boxes. That said, one has to be realistic. As we've got a bit bigger, we've now got a number of people who have approached us with their horses, and it's very flattering that they've done that. And I won't, where possible, I will try and accommodate that, because at the end of the day, they want us to have a go with their horses, and it would be as wrong of us not to try. And but equally, if you're taking on horses that have effectively disappointed at other yards, often at other good yards, then you've got to be realistic. They're not all going to suddenly improve dramatically. But we've got a mixture. We've got a few that have been sent to us, and we've got quite a few that we've sourced ourselves. And certainly, I would be very heavily involved personally in the sourcing.
Clearly, a very important part of being a trainer, I think, is in terms of bringing the right horses. And
absolutely.
We've had quite a few questions just asking about summer racing. And obviously, quite a few national hunt yards will concentrate very much on the traditional season, should we say, so starting in October, November time. Whereas it's noticeable that you've got quite a lot of horses ready to go this summer. Is that something you do every year? Is it just because of lockdown? Or is it a case that actually you find for some horses, summer racing can be beneficial?
I think probably all of those things, Dan. Historically, remember we've been running for a long time with sort of 20 boxes, and for 5 or 6 years we're completely full. We'd have 20 summer, 20 winter, and it would be 1 in, 1 out. And we'd do the pre-training at other yards just to try and fit around that, because of tight capacity. I'm lucky now, I've suddenly have 63 boxes collectively across the 2 yards. So it's a slightly different scenario. But it was just easier to run the business when there was 20 boxes, to keep it busy. You have a small team of people rather than sort of no work in the summer, then you need to get the whole team back in the winter. It's worked very well like that. But I'm also a firm believer that the season starts the 1st of May and it goes on for 12 months. It doesn't start the 1st of October, 1st of November, although some people might think it should start then. So there's opportunities, and I also think that a lot of horses, I prefer to start them on good ground in the summer rather than running in perhaps heavy ground. If you think back to the weather we had in January and February, frozen off in January and then floods in February, bottomless, abandoned, that's not really, you've got a young horse, you don't particularly want to really get to the bottom of them in their first ever run. So I'm very happy that making my entries at the moment now for Southwell and Uttoxeter and Stratford to start these horses off. That's not to say that they might have 2 or 3 runs, and some of them we might think, well, they need a bit of slower ground. We've got a handicap mark now, we'll take our time with them. And we also know that, if we take the absolute big guns on in November, December, and you win a race and win a novice hurdle, you've probably got a mark of 130. Whereas we've got a horse like Purple King, won 2 in last summer quite nicely, pretty easily actually. Think how easy he won at Kelso. And it's got a mark of 113. Well, that makes my life a lot easier when I'm trying to win a handicap hurdle next week. So with him, or week after. So there's lots of good reasons to do it, and it just sort of works for us. And obviously some horses have a ground preference as well. If we've got a real old-fashioned slogger, big heavy topped horse, needs very soft ground, we're probably not going to attempt to run him in the summer. Good example might be new foxtrot horse, Ballybody. I don't think we want to see him running around firm ground, run a sharp track. It just wouldn't suit him, and we wouldn't want to risk him on it. So, we need to choose our ground, but the summer tracks are much better at that now, watering well and so on. So I think there's lots of positives to doing it.
Now, of course, at this stage in the season, just before it begins, everyone's always very positive and lots to look forward to, and nothing can possibly go wrong. But unfortunately, as we know, in racing, things do go wrong. And it's interesting, Richard, looking at some of the stats and certainly looking at some of the top horses, it's amazing to me how many, particularly the top horses, have had significant time off during injuries. I mean, I think they are incredibly common, and perhaps even more common than I'd realised.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, that is the case. And I mean, I suppose, you know, like any sportsman probably, and other sports get injuries during their career. Racehorses are no different. Thoroughbreds in particular have been bred more and more for speed, and of course we ask them to do, particularly in jump racing, to do more and more work to get them fitter and fitter. So we're asking more questions of them all the time, and not all of them can cope with that. Realistic, the big difference in jump racing and flat racing is, whereas flat racing, you can if you play your cards right and you can win your 2-year-old race and you win the derby, then you can go straight off to stud and enjoy life as a stallion by the age of 3. Well, you know, we're asking jump horses to go on off into the age of 12 or even 13. So if we're going to ask them to come season after season, nearly every top jump horse misses a season, at least one at some point. And you do need to be, as an owner in this game, in the jump ring, very, very patient. And unfortunately, every single yard has its share of injuries. I mean, I've spoken to several other trainers actually about this, and I've got a fair idea of the incidence of injuries and so on that people experience. And unfortunately, it is just part of the sport. But most of them will come back if you give them the time.
Well, we're very fortunate. I mean, from our Foxtrot horses, we don't have many horses that are out injured. We've got 1 or 2 who are coming back from injury, but one horse that's sort of had an injury fairly recently is Mr. Chiang. And what we thought we'd do is just show a video of him, and perhaps without any sound. And Richard, perhaps you could just talk over that video and just give us a little bit of an update as we show that, as to how he is and what's, what the plan is for him.
Excellent. So we can see him there in his box. We can see him there in his box, Mr. Chiang. Lovely horse. And he looks so well. It's so frustrating. He's got a tendon strain injury. I was away actually when he got the tendon strain injury. It was diagnosed on a scan 7.5 weeks ago. Away, but what I mean by that, I came back a week later and felt the leg, and I wouldn't have been able to say that there was a tendon injury. So I was so surprised that it felt so minor or marginal that I actually got him rescanned with another vet to make absolutely sure. But he definitely has a little hole in his tendon, which is very annoying. He'd never done any really quick work yet with us. He'd done quite a lot of steady work, and it makes me think that the problem might have been brewing. He's a horse that did a lot of racing last year on the flat, and some of it on very quick ground. And I wonder whether he was carrying something which just came out when once he started doing more and more with us. I'm sure he'll come back. The latest update on him is that he's had 6 weeks of what we call microcurrent treatment, the same treatment I gave Von Romane, which is electrical shock treatment. It certainly won't do him any harm. How much difference it makes, I don't know. The proof of the pudding will be in the eating, but when he comes back. But he's on track. Actually, the latest is the vet has actually assessed him this morning and has agreed with us. He's absolutely fine now to turn out. So we will be, as of probably tomorrow, we will turn him out. And when you turn him out and they've had a lot of box rest, we'll probably dope him and give him a little bit of sedative to turn him out so that he doesn't go mad around the field. But he's ready for that. And then really what we've all got to do is just try and forget about him and let the months pass by. And probably about April next year, we'll start him off again to get him out for this, for next summer. So, and there's a very good chance he'll come back and do well. But it's just very frustrating for everyone that it's happened. He is, of course, a very young horse. He's only 4. So, that he has got time on his side. But it is terribly frustrating. And these tendon strains are the bane of a trainer's life, the bane of an owner's life in jump racing. We do everything we can to avoid them, but you just can't sometimes.
No, well, thanks very much for your very honest sort of appraisal of Mr. Chiang. And so just explain, you're using sort of, you mentioned sort of an electric sort of waves or something. Can you just expand and explain what that is?
I think the short answer is I probably can't explain it. The idea of it is you put the device, and it just the whole thing sounds counterintuitive. You put the device, it's a little box, and you stick it with you bandage it not on the horse's injured leg, but on another leg, and it releases little shocks of like tiny little electric shocks, And the idea is it somehow promotes a response, like promotes a healing response. Because one of the problems you've got with tendon strains, they've got very poor blood supply. So that's why healing is so slow. I really don't know whether it works. I did actually try something similar, and there is a device in humans that, funny enough, an old medical colleague of mine was interested in about 12 years ago when I shortly started training. I used maybe 15 years ago, so I tried it a bit then. I know that someone like Peter Bowen, Peter likes to dabble with different things, is someone I know quite well. Peter swears by it and likes it and believes it shortens the recovery and helps. The trouble with these things is the people selling you the device tell you how brilliant it is. There's no real good clinical studies to confirm it one way or the other. But the one thing you know with something like that, it really isn't going to bother the horse, and it isn't going to damage them in any way. It can only help. I did think that Ronnie's leg in particular looked exceptionally good after it, but whether sometimes just looking at it in the eye doesn't tell you what's going on inside the tendon. So we still, it can look great, but he still might break down when we start training again. I just don't know. But one thing it does do is it forces the trainer to give the horse proper box rest, because you do need to do it in the stable. So in a way, that's quite good. It disciplines you to give them that amount of time before you turn them out in the field. So nothing to lose, really, is the answer on that one.
Well, let's have a look at some of our other horses that we've got in training. Well, some of the other horses that are in training with you. We're going to go over to Lineker's and have a look at the horses over there. But first of all, we'll have a look at Arbor Vitae, who's actually in training at Urloxy, but somehow got included within this batch. So we'll see Arbor Vitae at Urloxy. Then we'll go over to Lineker's, have a look at the horses there. And then we'll be asking Richard about some of the other Foxtrot horses that are out in the field at the moment.
Arbor Vitae, Foxtrot horse, Arcadio mare, 6-year-old. A horse I'm really quite excited about, trained by Love in Ireland. She's been placed twice over hurdles, but not one, again, which keeps lots of opportunities. She's not too highly rated. She's very keen in her races in Ireland, and I do think that she ran remarkably well, really, because she ended up being allowed to stride on and go on and lead the whole way, and to end up placed, having run that way over 2.5 miles on softish ground or heavy ground in some cases, shows above average ability. She's got a full brother, I'm a Game Changer, who's a very good horse. Arcadio is a likeable stallion. So there's a lot to look forward to. She's been going really nicely. We have, unfortunately, just had a little foot problem, which has held us back the last few days. So I think she might be more towards the end of July she'll be out. But she's certainly one to look forward to. And we'll be looking for mares, maiden hurdles, novice hurdles, if we possibly can. Cat walking out on Mason Jar, coming to do his morning work. Now, some of you may have spotted different venue. This is our old yard at Lineker's, and we've been bringing these horses, critical horses, have been here for a 6-week campaign of doing some hill work. We want to do some intent, use our hill gallop, and they're actually all going to go back to Urloxy, the majority of them, next week, and we're swapping over and bringing in a lot of horses that you saw in the Urloxy tapes will be coming here to Lineker's. Mason Jar's a super horse, 3 wins last year. He ended up with a very good third at Aintree as well, and then ran at Cheltenham, didn't he, on New Year's Day. Don't think he quite got the 3-mile trip at Cheltenham, but I think the form of the 2.5-mile race at Aintree is more than good enough to win off his mark, so I'm hoping he can win again. And he'd be possible to run on the very first jumping day on the 1st of July at Southall in a 2.5-mile handicap hurdle. In the future, he could go chasing, and quickly just to say he's by no risk at all, who is one of my favourite stallions now, the French stallion, and of course is an up-and-coming young stallion, and of course is the sire of Epitante, who won the champion hurdle. Mason Jar, lovely horse. Monbeg Charmer, sent to us. He's not run for us yet. He used to be with Charlie Longston. Talk about patience that the owners have shown. Incredible, really. Lord and Lady Dolverton. The horse hasn't run for well over a year and a half, having had a tendon injury. They've been very patient with him. He went into pre-training a long time ago and been with us now for quite a long time. But we're hoping to run him in the summer plate at Market Raisin. Whether he's good enough for that grade now is very debatable. We just don't know, to be honest, but he likes to go right-handed, so it's a good starting point. He might not quite have the speed for that race now, we'll see. But we're going to have a crack at him. So hopefully he'll be fit and ready to go, and just hope he still retains all his ability. Monbeg Charmer. So Sam is on top of Classic Escape, and I'm particularly keen to point him out to you. We've had Classic Escape for nearly a year, but he hasn't run yet, and no fault of his own. He had a break, that was a plan. He came from Dennis Hogan in Ireland. He's quite lowly rated and will mix hurdling and chasing. But the interesting point is he's a half-brother to Saquon, who I know many of you have bought into. And he's got the same sort of shape. He's a sort of stocky horse, not a particularly big horse, but quite stocky. And he's got a nice way of going about him. He's a straightforward ride and a straightforward horse. But I'm certainly hoping that we'll have some improvement out of him. So that's Classic Escape. And he'll be running in early July, and perhaps mixing hurdling and then going chasing, which he's not done yet, but I'm sure he'll be fine. So this is Chef de Troupe, owned by my cousin. Won twice last year. Sam Twiston Davis on top there, and he won on him at Southwell. I think it was a famous winner for him, actually, completing his 1,000, if I've got it right. A good 2-miler, plenty of speed, came from the flat from France. But the handicapper had him a bit there. We're hoping we can get another win or two out of him, but perhaps not aim too high. Chef de Troupe. Now here's one we are excited about for this summer, Dancing in the Sky. Only had the 3 runs, I think, last year, never quite happened for him. He had a wind up. We cauterised his palate at the beginning of August, and he's not run since. We'll probably put a tongue tie on him just to be safe. But he's been working really well this year. He's done really nicely, and we're very hopeful that for mark of 107 that he can be extremely competitive. We're going to be schooling him over some fences as well, with a view to mixing hurdling and chasing. But I'd like to think that everyone's patience can be rewarded, and we can get his head in front. Certainly, he's got a nice mark to go to war with. Dancing in the Sky. Jimmy Rabbit. Delighted that Foxtrot have taken an interest in him. We had him last year. He's won 3 times for us. A bit of a personality. I think he slightly has 2 ways of running. When he's in the mood, he's got plenty of ability. I want to try him again over 3 miles. And I'll just tell you a funny comment as well. He's by Due by Destination, and those of you who remember that Sudden Destinations by Due by Destination talk about little and large. They couldn't be more different given they have the same stallion. But I want to try and get over 3 miles. And there's a race at Southwell on the 1st of July, and we might just have a crack at that to see if he can get the trip. But that's Jimmy Rabbit. This is YCCS Portacervo. Won twice last year. He's a funny old character by Marteline. Lovely, these Marteline Greys. I've got a mare, Marteline Grey mare. He disgraced himself on debut, running out at the first at Warwick. And then we ran him at Fakenham, and he won nicely, and then he won again at Stratford. He's a bit of a character. I'm really excited about getting him over a fence. He's not the biggest, but he jumps for fun, and he'll enjoy it. Now, so his mark's 123, and I've looked at the race programme. We've got to run him once over hurdles. I don't think he'll win off 123, but he could just drop a pound, and then we can get him in a 0 to 120 novice handicap chase. So that might be the time to look out for him. I do think he can win races over fences, and even though he's quite a young horse, I think the sooner we get him over the fences, the better. He'll have a lot of fun. He's a good jumper. This is McGrowty. He's a bit of a stable star. 6 wins for the yard. It's been a great success story for us. To be honest, he hasn't really found his form yet this year, and it's very tough for him now. He had such a brilliant summer last year. He won 4 times, kept mopping up those 2-mile chases, ended up winning a 40 grand race up at Kelso. Complete star, but his mark now, I think, when he was 151, I think he might have given us 2 back, but it's going to be very, very tough for him. And yeah, he's not coming to form yet, but just hope that there's very limited options for him. But we'll find there's a 2-mile chase in July. I think he'll have to run in it probably, and even if he can't win it, just drop a few pounds, and we'll keep running in those top 2-mile races. Employer, who's come from the flat, he's actually been our only runner so far this season at the time of filming, and he goes again on the flat at Kempton on Tuesday. He's by Camelot, so he was definitely bred for bigger things than novice hurdling in the summer, but that's where we bought him for. He's got a nice way of going about things. I'm not sure under pressure he finds that much. That's what we saw in his first flat run, but he certainly has the ability to win a race or 2, and we've got some new owners in him, and I think he'll hopefully be a real fun horse for them to mix it up, a bit of hurdling and flat. So this is B-Bolt, who came to us from Dan Skelton's earlier, and he's a horse that I actually think has benefited for the break, the enforced break, because of the COVID, because we gave him 5 to 6 weeks off. He's been back in training since early May now, and he's ready to go. He put a bit of condition on from that break. We went chasing just before the break. He ran second at Market Raisin, and he'll probably go back to Market Raisin on July the 10th. I think there's a 2 mile 0 to 120 handicap chase there, which should be right up his street. Going very nicely, so I'll be hopeful that we're going to have some fun with him. So this is Clever as a Fox, who some of you may remember winning impressively on debut for us in a maiden hurdle at Worcester on Worcester Ladies' Day last year. Unfortunately, he lost his form after that, and he became very, very light. He is a horse that does run up light, but we diagnosed he had significant gastric ulcers, and we ended up giving him, of course, some time off, and we trained him on Gastrogard, which a lot of people do. I've been really happy with his progress this year, and we're looking forward to running him. He's possible for the summer hurdle at Market Raisin on the 10th, probably more likely to go to Utoxeter on the 6th. But Clever as a Fox, he's been working really well, and we're looking forward to seeing how we get on with him. So this is Forecast. He's just having his girth tightened by Colleen, about to go and do his morning work. As you can see, quiet as a lamb here. We're delighted to have him, 8-year-old. Was trained by Martin Keithy before. Now we were all set to go hurdling with him in Aintree, at Aintree meeting, but we missed that because of the wretched COVID crisis. He's now going to go novice chasing. We're hoping we're going to run him. He's run once with Martin over the fences, and he's got a high mark, 138, so I'd like to try him over the fences. We think coming back in trip a bit might help him, and actually we think we might try him over either 2 miles or 2.5 miles, and there's a possible race for him in Stratford coming up in the next few days, or early July.
Okay, well, I hope everyone enjoyed that, and thanks again to Richard and Rod for putting those clips together. What I thought we could do, we've had lots of questions coming in, but we might pause on those and just ask Richard to talk us through a little bit of the horses that have been out or are out in the field at the moment. And so I think we've got Powder Path, Ballybody, Kay Delan, Little Rory Mac, Saquon at the moment in the field. So Richard, I don't know if you want to do each individual or just give us a bit of a summary about, when are they going to be back into training?
So, as I touched upon earlier, Dan, the winter ones will all get started very soon. We'll probably start in 2 batches starting from the 1st of July, which is obviously next week. Certainly in the next 10 days, we'll be getting them started. And we'll certainly by the middle to 3rd week in July, I'd expect all these horses to be back in work. So KJ Lynn, Little Rory Mac, Saquon, Ballybody, they've got no issues. They're just having a holiday. And it gets to a point where you give them a nice break. It's good, but there's a point where it becomes counterproductive that all they'll do if we go any longer is put more and more weight on, which we all have to get rid of when we're going to get them fit for the races. And it takes a long time to bring these horses back. So one of the challenges we've got now is, if you like, the winter ones need to start and the summer ones haven't started yet. So there's a bit of concertining there, but that's fine. Just in terms of options, deal with it. I'll come to Powder Puff in a minute. KJ Lynn, been a great star for us. We know as a 2 mile chaser. I'm sure there's more races to be won with him on his day. When he's in the mood, he's pretty decent. We know that. And I think I like the idea of getting him ready for the early Ludlow races. Ludlow's a funny, quirky track. He seemed to jump for fun and really enjoyed it there. So I like the idea of going back there if we can find the right race. And there's no program book out yet, but then normally they put some nice, valuable races on there. So I'm sure that's where we'll be aiming in the autumn, with the possibility of also going to Ascot. Again, Little Rory Mac is an exciting one. Can't wait to go novice chasing with him. Has been a little bit keen in his races before, and I think chasing might really help him because it tends to help horses back off a bit and they respect the fences, and it just brings them back a bit, and he could turn out to be well above average. I'm looking forward to getting on and going novice chasing with him. He's a good jumper. Saquon is a new horse we know might well go down the bumper route. I suspect he'll have a nice speed for it. but we'll see when we get going with him. And we know that his stallion Arcadia do quite well with bumper horses, so that's a possibility. Bumpers or novice hurdling, young horse, but a very nice addition to the team. Ballybody, also lightly raced, coming from the point-to-point field, exciting new recruit, but my hunch is that we wouldn't bother with the bumpers. We'll just get on and go novice hurdling, because he's going to be a staying chaser in the making. So, I doubt he'll really want to do speed flat races, if you like, but we'll see how we go. But all of those will be starting very shortly. Powder Path, just put a word in for him. Those that were involved in him, terribly disappointing that he got this shocking injury. I like telling this story though, because I'm very, very proud of the fact that Jess Miller, who works for us, who runs our Lineker's yard now, she was riding Powder Puff at the time when he got his injury. He got a tibial fracture. He's got a spiral fracture that goes right up the leg, the tibial fracture. I'm convinced that if she hadn't hopped off when she did, she felt him go wrong, immediately jumped off. I think if she hadn't stopped then, his leg would have snapped within, and as can happen on the gallops, and that would have been, you'd have been destroyed immediately. Amazingly, she jumped off. Despite the big spiral fracture, he's had the orthopedic surgery. He's got lots and lots of metal work in his leg, but it's worked really well. And he's actually been in the field now. We've definitely salvaged him as a capable of being a racehorse again, and you'd hope he would be, but we need to see. And the great news is that he seems to be becoming sounder, a lot sounder than he was a month or two ago. But we're not out the woods yet in terms of going back into training, but certainly the horse, as a horse, we've saved his life.
Well, that's terrific, and I think it says a lot about the staff that you have, Richard. I just had up I was trying to get up a photo actually of his injury, but my computer didn't appreciate me trying to do that. So I'm just going to try again, because I think it's really interesting just to have a look at. I'm in danger of just seeing if my laptop will open it up. No, maybe it won't. It will be too slow. But if I can get it up later, I will, because I had it ready to show, but my computer decided to freeze at the wrong moment, which often happens. But no, that's great news about all those horses. So thank you very much for the update on those. So just to confirm, Richard, they're obviously not Powder Path, but the others will be coming in early July to come into training.
Yeah, probably within the next 10 days. Yeah, that's our next job really. We've just done the switch over from Lineker's to Urloxy, and then the next lot is getting all these winter ones going. So that's the next task. We're starting to plan for it now.
Brilliant. Well, let's answer some questions that we've had in from our Foxtrot members. So the first one is in terms of jockeys. So Richard, you appear to have had Sam, we've seen in the video there, Tom O'Brien we saw. It appears you've got lots of jockeys that want to ride for you. Do you consider yourself very lucky that they come in and ride out? And who is your number one jockey?
Very much so. It's very important to have good riders in all elements, both in the races themselves, of course, and getting hold of the top jockeys isn't always that easy. Lucky enough that we've got high enough up the pecking order that we tend to be able to attract good jockeys. But it's also very important to have good riders generally at home, so which we do have. Not just the jockeys. We've got two conditional riders, of course, attached to the yard. Charlie Hammond, who's now had 53 winners or whatever, started this having had none, so he's done very well. And we've got Killeen Leonard, who's at a different stage, but has only had 8 winners. But of course, he did his 4 winners last year were Cheltenham, Ascot, and Ascot. So that's a pretty good start. And Killeen still claims £8 in conditional riders races. It's frustrating for him that conditional riders are not going to be allowed. The junior ones are not going to be allowed to start until 1st of August as a sort of COVID precaution for some reason. But we'll try and keep it in the family. But sorry, to pick up the point about Sam Twiston-Davies, I mean, I think Sam's had probably 140 winners for us now, something like that. He's a big part of the team. He's coming in twice a week now, which is great. It was his idea. It wasn't us asking him to come a second time. He's always come in once. Thursday's a schooling day. He'll go up to Urloxy, he'll school lots of horses. And he's coming up to Lineker's now because he wanted to sit on those horses and do some quick work on them. So hence you saw in both the videos. It's terrific because it means, A, he gives good advice. B, he's getting to know all these horses. So when he turns up on the track on them, he's, you know, he literally feels when he's going into a race, he knows what he's riding and he's fearless from fence one. But no, he's been a huge part of our team for a long time. So we'll probably stick to that. And it's great that Tom and Daryl Jacobs been in as well. And people like Sean Byrne would use them. But they, to be blunt, they would only really be using them when Sam can't ride. We have to make sure the loyalty is two ways.
And just to explain about Colleen, is he able to ride at the moment when racing resumes?
No, he can't. And this is a BHA thing. I don't know why, but someone, we can have a little titter to ourselves, but someone can explain to me why, if you've ridden less winners, you're more likely to get the virus, break safe distancing rules and spread it to other people than you are if you've ridden more winners. I'm not quite sure about that one, but it's the way they've set it up, and it's terribly frustrating for him. I think he was a bit disappointed, to be honest. Another month he's got to wait, and of course it affects their earnings as well. You know, you can't get riding fees and can't get prize money, but they're all having to be very patient. But to pick up on that, I'm sure we'll want to use Colleen. I like you targeting boys races, boys conditional riders races. They're called boys races. There's this funny quirk that if you win one of them, you get no penalty. And that can be very attractive and often allows you to win a second race or of the same handicap mark, or in a novice hurdle with no penalties. So they are attractive. And Colleen would be very good value in one of those races, because until you've had 10 winners, he can claim £8 if he's riding for his stable in those races. And curiously, only £7 when he's taking on Richard Johnson and company. So we'd be foolish not to use him on the right horses, obviously.
And Charlie Hammond obviously, you know, rides for you as well. I mean, he seems to have improved tremendously over the last sort of couple of years. Not to say he wasn't a good jockey before that, but I think particularly, you know, he now looks very, very accomplished.
I totally agree. I think Charlie's improvement has been remarkable. I mean, you know, he when he first started, if you people who look closely at this, aficionados of this, will see that, you know, he's changed his whole position. His whole position, the saddle is different. It's more professional. You used to be able to pick him out in the early days. You think, well, you could see him as the amateur, and but he's worked very hard at it. And they, you know, it's what they do behind the scenes. When, you know, the lads who are really committed to change. They have jockey coaches, and they have equicizers. They work on their fitness. And Charlie's a hard-working lad, and he's really worked hard at it, and he's much improved. It's good value for his £3. And there'll be certain horses now where I'd actually think we might put Charlie on. Particularly if Charlie knows a horse very well at home, we might put Charlie on rather than Sam. It won't be just, you know, absolutely Sam gets everything sort of thing. And of course, quite a few of these races, particularly early season, I think we could well have two horses in the same race, because there is lack of options. We just got to run some of these novice hurdlers, for example. So which I would think Sam would line up on one and Charlie on the other.
So how does the race program look? You've obviously had a chance, and how far in advance are we getting information about what races are going to take place?
We only know up to the end of July. We know July, but we don't know anything beyond. And so we've got the program book there, and, you know, I've done all my provisional draft entries. They're all done. I still will want to refine them a bit for you know, first two and a half weeks. I'm hoping they're going to put some extra race meetings on, but that's not been confirmed. And I've been chasing the BHA today about that, because at the moment, as it stands, unless they do, end of July, there's a 2-week break. So the last thing we really need is another 2 weeks off at the beginning of August. So I very much hope they'll find a way of putting an extra 3 or 4 meetings on then, to at least keep the continuity and keep things going. But we know the program book for the first month, and we've got lots of entries. I mean, I'm expecting most of the first 5 or 6 meetings. I'm expecting to have minimum 3 runners and maybe up to 5 or even 6. So we'll be getting plenty of horses out, because we just got to get going. And I don't think we can be too fussy. I mean, I think we saw with the flat that we don't know yet how many are going to be entered and how many people are going to be balloted out and so on. I think where we can run horses, we'll run them and get on with it. And obviously hope to win some races along the way, but not probably be too fussy, because we do need to get runs into these horses. And actually, just to make it clear, I do expect some of these horses, even though we've been off the track a long time, I expect, you know, and there's been quite a lot of build up to this, I do expect some of these horses still to need their first run. So, for example, I'll take example Mason Jar, I'm very pleased with, but he needed his first run last year. I'm pretty sure he'll need his first run this year. And that's not a reason for us to wait any longer. Let's get out and give him a run. You know, we need to get started.
So we've had a question about something I don't think we've talked about before, which is, Richard, you mentioned about your own breeding. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
I can. I'm not very good at it. We've got. I can. The story is that I've always thought, and people will know from the way we buy horses. I tend to buy horses in training, horses that have proven that they have got a level of ability as a racehorse. They might not be stars, but they've proven that they can train and be sound as a racehorse, and they can run a few times. So I've always thought that the biggest disaster is store horses, buying unraced store horses, and there's only one thing worse than that, and that's breeding them. And then my wife mentioned to me a few years ago, said, "Oh, she thought it'd be a good idea that we breed some ponies." I said, "Well, bloody hell! If we're gonna breed ponies, let's breed some race horses." And I've foolishly gone down the route that I've told everyone else that they're mad to do. But it's a fun thing to do. My expectations are not high, and what we have is 3 brood mares. 2 actually I joint own, one with my cousin and one with some very great local friends of ours, and one that we own ourselves. But I have done one thing a bit differently, which is I have a bit of a theory that the mares I bought are all 130 plus race mares. They race themselves, and they race to a good ability. So my best mare, if you like, at the moment probably is Run Ruction's Run, who some will remember won the listed mares find at Newbury. I got her for really quite a reasonable price. She's by Westerner. And we've sent her to Cave Tara, and we've had a filly and then another filly, and she's just had another foal literally 3 weeks ago by Telescope filly. And then I've got another mare, a Flemingsworth mare called A Dream Still Alive. She's went to Cave Tara, filly. And then Cave Tara, the poor old boy, he's about 25 now, tried to cover her last year and didn't manage it despite several attempts. So she and the grey mare I've got, who's a Marteline mare, Carolee, was with Willie Mullins, 140 horse. They've both been to France, and Carolee's been covered by Capguard, and just come back in foal, and A Dream Still Alive is in foal to Dr Dino. So that's all I can tell you. But all I can say is, if you do the maths and you work out how can we not produce a single colt, I do not know, because it's becoming statistically almost impossible if this carries on. And remember, this is the father of 3 daughters you're talking to.
Well, let's take just a couple more questions, Richard, and then we'll finish off. So we've got a question here from Claire that just wants to talk about horses that pull hard. Is there a way in which you can educate or teach them to settle, or is it, horses that pull hard just pull hard?
A bit of both, I think, and I think it just depends on the horse. We have had horses over the years that have come very keen, and over a while they have relaxed more, and that they've more relaxed in the way they run, and then they've improved for it. A good example for us would be a horse called Bobet. We've had it done well with. Now you'd think he's quiet as a lamb, anyone could ride him, and over fences, he's a very straightforward ride, really. He never used to be. If you look back at his early hurdle runs, he was a tearaway, and he wouldn't get the 2 miles because he would go off too fast. We've been sent 1 or 2 mares this year, who one in particular I mentioned, just a fee on the tape. I think she could be very good, but she's going to have to radically change what she's been doing on the track. And I wouldn't be surprised. I mentioned her, put her in the film really partly because I thought it would be an interesting one for Foxtrot supporters to follow. She'll probably make a fool of us and bomb off again, but we'll be doing our damnedest to try and get her to settle. We've got her settled at home. She settles quite nicely at home, and we're doing a few things differently. But whether it works for some and not for others, I think.
Which was the name of that filly? Just for Fee. In the notebook.
Well, I have to tell you that I do hope it works, because they're very lovely people, a local couple, and he's called Justin, and she's called Fiona, and it was I think it must have been a wedding present or whatever for her from him. First horse, and they bought it and then named it Just for Fee. So the pressure's on, but I think the answer is they can settle, they can improve, and we certainly try to do it. But it doesn't always work.
Well, let's ask one final question. And I did a little bit of research that's building up to this afternoon, looked at some of your stats, Richard, and if I'm honest, it's pretty frightening how good they are. I think we've always been very impressed with you and your strike rate, but when you actually delve into the statistics, my wife tells me as a maths teacher, statistics never lie, they just get interpreted in different ways. So 23% strike rate over the last 5 years. From just 121 horses, which is absolutely phenomenal. I think particularly, you mentioned before that you're buying very much at the value end of the market as well. I could only find Nicky Henderson had anywhere near as good a stats as you did over the last 5 years, and I suspect his horses might cost us a little bit more than yours, but you have to ask that. But certainly when you consider, Paul Nicholls, Gordon Elliott and their stats, I think you're up there, well, you're ahead of them, and I think we all want to say well done and congratulations on that. But 60 winners last year, have you got any ambitions or any particular targets for the season ahead?
Well, right now, my ambition is to have a winner, and I wouldn't mind one tonight at Kempton at 7:55. But I think, particularly when the jumps start next week, I'm mindful that we have got a lot of horses waiting to run, and we do. I'm not expecting them all to bomb in, but it'd be nice to get a few winners. And I'm looking to slightly make hay during the summer. We have trained a lot of horses for the summer, and I hope we've got horses. They may not be stars, but I think in their grades they should be very competitive. A lot of them, which hopefully came over in the film. I don't really have a number. I don't put a number in my head as to what we've got to do, and but I just like to try, and we all work very hard. I'm sure you appreciate that. And I try very hard to give the horses the best opportunities for each individual horse, and that's why I know it sounds a lot of horses. Of course, 60 odd horses, a lot more than we've trained before. But and you've heard this before from me probably at different times. But I definitely have no ambitions to go bigger than that. That is enough. Because I wouldn't be happy if we're not giving maximum time to each horse to really. I've already spent hours over the latest program trying to work out where should we run these horses, and having said we mustn't be too fussy, you're still trying to work out that 0 to 110 fillies only at Southwell on the 14th, and what's the follow-up race, and there's a lot of race planning going into it, and I'll be disappointed if you get to the stage where you've got 150 horses. Frankly, a few of them get the special treatment, but the rest are box fillers, and unless they prove themselves above average, that's what happens in big yards. So I'm very keen that we sort of keep to the level we are, but keep doing well, keep the high strike rate if we possibly can. Recognise we're going to have fallow periods. We had a bit of a fallow period, to be honest, at the end of last season. But we just be very happy to get a few good winners on the board.
Well, Richard, thank you again for all your time and all the time that you and Rod put in, not just for our horses, but also in creating the videos that we've watched this afternoon. Very, very enjoyable, very insightful, not just for the Foxtrot horses, but I think all the horses in the yard. And we all appreciate your openness and your honesty as to what's going on in the training. And we're really excited about seeing our horses back on the track. So from all of us at Foxtrot, the very best of luck for the season ahead, and let's hope that it's a very successful one.
Dan, thank you very much. That's great. All the best. Cheers, everyone. Bye.
Great. Well, thanks everyone very much for joining us. I hope that you've enjoyed today's sort of virtual stable visit, and we'll look forward to hopefully seeing you all on the racecourse very soon.